Goler has the news. He's live at the White House this afternoon. Wendell, is there any way to really know whether the president and the Israeli prime minister are on the same page when it comes to how to deal with Iran?
Well, Shep, the president says both want a diplomatic solution, and as you heard earlier, he said there is still time for one, but it's unclear if he and Prime Minister Netanyahu agree on the so-called red lines that Iran would have to cross to trigger military action. Now, the president, given the apparent trust deficit between him and Bibi Netanyahu, seemed to go out of his way to try and make clear that the military option is real.
Even as we will continue on the diplomatic front, we will continue to tighten pressure when it comes to sanctions. I reserve all options, and my policy here is not going to be one of containment. My policy is prevention of Iran obtaining nuclear weapons. And as I indicated yesterday in my speech, when I say all options are at the table, I mean it.
Privately, U.S. officials say Iran still hasn't decided to weaponize its enriched uranium. They say that could take the better part of a year after a decision is made. Shepard?
You know, Wendell, these two leaders met last year, and some observers said that, or characterized the looks of that meeting as somewhat chilly. What was the assessment today from those who assess?
Different issue last year. Then the president was pressing Mr. Netanyahu on the Palestinian issue, pushing him to stop building settlements, to return to the peace talks. Today, Netanyahu himself played up the U.S.-Israeli relationship, saying Iran sees the U.S. and Israel as the big and little Satan. And this just a week after his aides warned he won't give the U.S. advance notice of an attack on Iran.
You know, for them, you're the great Satan, we're the little Satan. For them, we are you and you are us. And you know something, Mr. President? At least on this last point, I think they're right.
Yesterday, in a speech to Israel's biggest U.S. lobby, the president said Israel must have the ability to defend itself by itself. Prime Minister Netanyahu said that was the most important thing he said in that speech. Shepard?
Wendell Goler at the White House for us this afternoon. Wendell, thank you. Let's get over to Judith Miller now. She's a Fox News contributor, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. She's also an adjunct fellow at the think tank, the Manhattan Institute. And about a month ago, she returned from a trip to the Middle East. And now we're trying to assess where we are with situations with Iran, where Benjamin Netanyahu is in relation to our president. What is your sense of things?
My sense is that there is still a trust deficit, as Wendell Goler said. These men simply don't like each other, and that makes it difficult to come to an agreement.
How do we know they don't like each other?
Well, we know from their friends and from the people I was speaking to in Israel. And you know, Shep, normally that doesn't matter because we say people have friendships and countries have interests. But when a country is as dependent as Israel is on the United States, you have to have trust.
Right.
And what they're trying to do now is to see whether or not they can make an agreement, just come to some kind of agreement.
Why don't they have trust?
They don't have trust because basically they got off to the wrong start.
Well, the president has said now, we'll do everything to protect Israel. Our policy is not one of containment. It is one of stopping them from getting... What else does he have to do before everybody stops all of this idle chatter about whether they're all buddy-buddy?
What he has to do is convince Netanyahu that they agree on what constitute the red lines. That is, what will Iran do? If they do X, Y, or Z, will that be considered crossing the line? Because right now there is no agreement on those incredibly important criteria for military action.
On military action?
Yes.
Everyone I've talked to within the military community seems to believe that military action is not the right way to go right now.
Right now, I think everyone would agree, but they disagree. Bibi Netanyahu and the president disagree on when and where is the right time, the right moment, what's the right justification. That's what they have to agree on.
Why not cross that bridge when you come to it, just out of curiosity?
You can't, because a military operation takes so much planning. Look,
so we have a way to know whether they're planning such a thing now. I know that they have contingency plans for hot spots all over the world, and the suggestion would be we have contingency plans for everything in the world except this. Iran, there's no contingency plan on Iran. That just flies in the face of logic.
I think that your suspicion is correct. I think, of course, there are contingency plans, but the issue is...
then what's the problem?
No, the problem is when will Iran have crossed the line? For the president, it's actual step towards acquiring a nuclear weapon. For Israel, it's acquiring the capability to put a nuclear weapon together quickly. That's a very different standard. It's a very different moment. Also, the president has to know that if there is a military confrontation in the Middle East, it's going to hurt his re-election prospects.
There already is.
There
a lot
is
of
not,
them.
But not one that is directly challenging the price of oil, the sense of stability of the entire world. This would be a major conflict, Shep.
Yeah,
and he wants to put that off as long as possible. You know, I believe the president when he says that he doesn't bluff and that he's ready to take military action. The issue is, are their clocks the same? Is Bibi looking at the same clock that Barack Obama is looking at? And right now, you have to say, no, they're not.
Yeah.
So this is such an incredibly important meeting. Can we find the same time on the same clock?
Right.
Can we make an agreement? Or, that's what was so disturbing about what Bibi said this morning. He said, you know, Mr. President, basically, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. Israel reserves the right to protect its own national interests. And what he's saying...
So does the United States.
What he's signaling is, I've got to take the action. I must, if we can't come to an agreement. It was kind of subtle pressure, but I really hope they do because a lot depends on it.
Yep. We'll see what happens. Judith Miller, great to see you as always.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.